Drew here, and I really didn't expect the pacing of Mare of Easttown to pick up so aggressively in this second episode. I think that as the emphasis has shifted from the townspeople to the more procedural elements, it really does feel like a different show. So if you weren't sold on it because you were hoping for more of a mystery, well, this might be more for you. I would give it another shot this episode. For me, I am still enjoying the show, obviously. It's one of the better things I've seen this year on television. But I have to say, I feel like for all that's been gained in terms of pacing, I feel that something has been lost as well, because I really was enjoying the rumination on small town life in this Philadelphia suburb, and I feel that as the case picks up steam, I feel that the show has less time to just spend with the characters and their lives, and I feel like that's a little bit of a shame. As it picks up steam and gets more emphasis on the procedural elements, it's starting to feel a little bit more like Broadchurch, and the parallels are pretty obviously there. It kind of feels honestly like, the American version of Broadchurch, or I should say the second American version of Broadchurch, for those of you that had the misfortune of seeing Grace Point. But here, they bring in an outside detective to help Mare solve the case, which of course causes her to feel some resentment towards Detective Colin Zabel, played here ably by Evan Peters. I feel like this character brings a welcome presence. I think one of the funnest things this episode was to see his budding chemistry with Mare. They have completely different energies. He's really calm and doesn't seem to like conflicts, and he's really, really eager to please, and he's trying to get along with Mare, and she's just intent on resenting him. And there were just a lot of funny scenes between the two where the back and forth really crackled. And the funnest part for me was just watching Evan Peters' reactions as, Mare goes into a situation, riles up the locals, and then he's trying to pacify people and also to seem supportive of her. This, came out in the interrogation sequence where Mare was really aggressively interrogating this person who was beating Aaron last week, and also during the sequence where she arrested her at the restaurant in front of her father and everyone in the restaurant. And during these scenes, it was just kind of funny watching Colin just be like, blah, and, trying to follow her lead, trying to seem supportive, but still kind of feeling like he's been thrown into this situation that he doesn't completely understand. And I'm interested to see how this relationship develops going forward. I really think, as I said, that he brings a welcome energy, but I'm kind of holding back on growing too attached to him, because I have this lurking suspicion that I shouldn't get too attached to him, because this is HBO, and his presence is a little bit undercutting Kate Winslet as the lead of this show. So I kind of wonder if he's not going to have his head crushed like a watermelon, or he's going to get shot in the head by his best friend, or he's going to have his head repeatedly slammed in a car door, because this is HBO, and I'm not bitter, but I'm a little bit bitter. So I'm enjoying the character, but I have a lurking suspicion that he might not be in it for the long haul, and that's keeping me from unreservedly liking him the way I want to. But this episode, titled Fathers, as the investigation proceeds a little further and we get to see a little bit more insight into the characters, I think that the title could be referring to Aaron's father, played by Patrick Murney. Kenny McMenamin, he did not come off well to me the first episode, and this episode, once again, I feel that he takes drastic actions, and he seems far more intent, obviously, on coming across as someone who's in control of the situation and getting credit for his contributions than as someone who genuinely cared for his daughter and his grandson. To me, personally, I think that he had a very, very strong emotional reaction to Aaron's death. And it was interesting to me because it reminded me nothing so much as of Sean Penn's performance in Mystic River, where he's like, "That's my daughter!" Like, just the way he was fighting these two guys and throwing himself around. Like, it was a good performance, and I was getting a little bit emotional for him watching it. But then I started thinking about Sean Penn in Mystic River, and I kind of stopped feeling as emotional about it. But his actions this episode also kind of mirror Sean Penn's character in Mystic River, in that, as I said, he takes some drastic action against Dylan, who is not the father of Aaron's son. More on that later. But the way that they kind of cross-cut between Dylan getting taken out into the woods by Kenny and the revelation coming out that Dylan was not the father potentially. I felt like the way that broke down, I think it was like they're trying to show, oh, he's getting potentially killed. It's not 100% clear that he's dead yet. It was pretty obvious that Kenny was very drunk as he was staggering out of the car, so maybe his marksmanship was not all that it could have been, but it definitely seems like it's possible that he killed Dylan. But cross-cutting between Dylan getting shot and the revelation that he might not be the father, I felt like this was supposed to perhaps increase our sympathy for him. Like, oh, poor kid, he's not even the father, and he's been misused, and now he's dead for a crime that he probably didn't commit. I mean, I'm 99% sure that he wasn't the one to kill Aaron, which I guess would make him a great candidate to actually be the murderer, because he's so obvious that we would never actually suspect him. But I felt no sympathy for him whatsoever, and mainly because, like a lot of characters in the first episode, he just came off as such a scumbag, sitting there watching his girlfriend beat up the woman who he thinks is the mother of his child. Like, how low can you get? Like, what kind of a man are you? So I felt very little sympathy for him in this situation, even though I feel like the show wants us to feel a degree of sympathy for him. He's also kind of an idiot, because when Mare was interrogating him, she was very, very clear, like, stuff is going to come out. You're not going to be able to keep anything from me, so you should tell me now, because if you lie to me or withhold information, it's not going to look good for you. And then he doesn't tell her about what happened the night prior when they were beating up Aaron. And it's like, you have to know that that's going to come out. Her own daughter was there and saw what you did, and it was filmed. So you're an idiot if you're not telling her, because it's going to come out and you're just going to look guilty. But the revelation, of course, that Frank Sheehan may have been having a relationship with Aaron, which was foreshadowed briefly in this scene between Mare earlier in the episode, where he said, he kind of said, I got the sense that Aaron didn't have the best home life, and you realize that he was her teacher, and alarm bells should have been ringing there, but it was, not 100% clear at that particular moment, but it should have kind of been a little bit of a warning that perhaps he was involved. And this revelation, though, that, perhaps he was a little bit too close to Aaron. Maybe he's the father of her son. This is not my favorite choice for a show to make. I always struggle with when shows like Broadchurch and this one have the main character have these personal connections to the investigation. And the personal connections for Mare are starting to become too many. Like the fact that her daughter said something to Aaron right before Aaron staggered off to the woods. And, I think it was pretty clear that Mare's daughter was lying when she said, that she didn't say anything. She just went off into the woods and there's nothing to be said. Like, you kind of wonder, knowing that perhaps Frank had a relationship with her, that Aaron said something about that. So that Mare's daughter said something about that to Aaron. So we'll have to wait and see. If the murderer is Richard Ryan, played by Guy Pearce, I have to say it's the most obvious suspect in recent procedurals, because he just seems like exactly the person that you would expect to be the murderer, and by the economy of characters, it just seems like it has to be him, because why is he here? Is he really just here to give Mare someone to be in a relationship with? That seems doubtful. This isn't a recreation of Mildred Pierce, but this character does seem somewhat reminiscent of the character in Mildred Pierce, to be honest, where he's very, very full of himself, and obviously thinks that he's practically doing Mare a favor by dating her. And you have to wonder, like, does he have ulterior motives? Is he like trying to get closer to the case by dating Mare? So on the whole, I enjoyed this episode. I do feel like a little bit was lost as the plot kind of got a little bit more aggressive in how quickly it's being developed. But the cast is strong and the writing remains very good, and Kate Winslet remains just excellent here. I thought that she had a lot of good scenes. I thought, she's very convincing in so many different moments, like the moment when she's watching Kenny very closely as he reacts to his daughter's death. And I don't know that this is what was going on, but I interpreted her in that scene to be studying him to see if this was a genuine reaction or if he was perhaps putting it on to make her less suspicious of him. And I also, thought it's really remarkable the way that Kate Winslet can seem convincing in these scenes where she's intimidating men. That the father of the girl that she arrested was coming at her really aggressively, and that she was giving as good as she got. I feel like that's really good acting on her part, that it's believable that she could stand up to him in that situation as, a physically less intimidating individual. And I feel that there were just a myriad other examples. She brings so much humanity to this role during the investigation scenes. And I'm really, really enjoying this show, in large part due to her performance. As I said, I do feel like Evan Peters, to a certain extent, undercut her as a lead this episode. Not in a bad way. I feel like she's still like the very obvious lead of this show, but I feel that like as you incorporate him more, it almost feels like a twofer rather than a solo run. And I'm not sure if he'll be around the whole show as a result. I feel like they might not have him stick around just because he would undercut her if he was around the whole season, but we'll have to wait and see. So those are just my thoughts for what they are worth. Let me know what you thought in the comments. If you're interested in seeing my upcoming reviews of other shows, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for tuning in to hear my thoughts.